And now, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. He's a successful entrepreneur, published author, top listing agent, a real estate and finance expert that goes to bat for you every day as a consumer advocate. Your host and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
And yes, here we are again, another day committed to being your consumer advocate. We love to help you understand your buying decisions, make you more street smart here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, helping you win in any marketplace, avoid a lot of the commission-based advice that's so prevalent out there, and also just be that resource for you. We want to be that super connector for you. We've got 80 different categories of consumer advocate content and advice here on the show, and lots of folks that we can refer to you. Save our hotline number, 813-917-1894. And we appreciate those that call in and reach out and try to support the station and the show here by supporting our expert contributors. 813-917-1894. You can call or text that line. It's an off-air number. And also consumerqb.com. consumerqb.com. You can see links there to all of our expert contributors at consumerqb.com. And we got a great lineup for you today. We've got attorney Patrick Smith in studio, Florida estate planning. He does Florida wills, trust, estate planning, and probate attorney. Patrick Smith, welcome in, sir.
Thank you, Brandon. I'm excited to be here today.
Excellent, excellent. And you've got your own radio station, or radio show, that is, 14 markets. That's impressive. And you do right here Saturday mornings, 8 a.m. on 860 The Answer as well. Yes,
sir. We look forward to talking a little bit today about basic estate planning, kind of letting everybody know their basic options that are out there.
Excellent. Yeah, a lot of confusion comes into play. A lot of times it's the family members dealing with the collecting, all of the different, legal matters and all the stuff that happens. The real estate that's involved sometimes. Got to dispo and sell that real estate sometimes. So coming up, attorney Patrick Smith on the program, and we have attorney KARMIKA Rubin as well, law offices of KV Rubin. And welcome back, KARMIKA.
Yes, glad to be back. Excited to share.
Excellent. Yeah, and you've got your Zoominar coming up soon as well, right?
Yes, March 24th, 6 p.m. Check it out. Go to the website. I'm excited.
Yeah. What are folks going to learn if they go to your Zoominar?
We're going to be talking about when you're going through a divorce, how does the real estate play a part of it? Whether it's commercial, residential, foreclosure, inherited. We're talking property and divorce in Florida.
Awesome. Okay. Excellent. Yep. So those are good topics. Family law is an interesting topic as well, and people have a lot of questions, a lot of concerns about that. So we'll jump right into it here, going right into the program. So what is equitable distribution in Florida?
So equitable distribution in Florida, one, we're a no-fault state. You can get divorced just because you're no longer happy with one another. But when it comes to what you have accumulated together as a marriage, the state of Florida looks at it as one. So when people have a house before marriage, well, that's non-marital. But once you get married and you add that person to the deed, or you add that person to some other property, everything is split half and half, or fairly as an equitable distribution. We want the parties to leave the marriage as even as possible.
Yeah, and that's when you get into when you have children as well, you get the different, they come in, they do that income sheet, right? They come in and say, okay, well, what's the incomes? What are the needs that the child needs as well? So you kind of get into basically an advanced mathematic equation, right?
Well, that's kind of getting into more of the child support, child custody, but equitable distribution literally deals with your business assets. It deals with your pensions, your retirements, your boats, your houses, your cars, your savings account, your checking account. It's like whatever you both own as an asset and a liability is going to be split half and half. Now, talking about the children and the child support, that's a whole nother chapter.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you get into the different calculations in terms of who's the primary wage earner, where are the children going to spend most of their time, who's going to keep the the custodial, who's going to have that custodial arrangement.
Oh my gosh, yes. And when I say even that portion is convoluted, you would think that it would be simple. But if parties are emotional and not thinking clearly and still are not really ready to face the reality of going from being married to single, one issue can last years.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's a challenging time for a lot of people. And, throughout the years, we've talked about this on the show. And one of the biggest things to think about is, kind of the golden rule when you're going through this, treat others, even though it is a spouse that you're kind of ending a long-term relationship with. Think about the children. Think about how to, structure these things to where it's a position where you're not causing grief and you're adding a lot of trauma to the children. That's one of the biggest things when it comes to divorce and those separations.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Divorcing is not a happy time. It really isn't. I look at it as an equivalent of a death. So it's the death of a relationship, a death of a promise, death of, visions and goals that we thought that we were going to have as a marriage. It's just a death. And kids are definitely adversely affected by that. They're affected because now you're living in mom's home or dad's home. And, everyone just has a very unfortunate bad experience. You don't hear of a good experience from a divorce. You can say it, but it's challenging. Divorce affects everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, very seldom do you see that, and I've heard of some where it's like, okay, the final number is $68,054 that's owed, and I've heard of different situations where the person comes in and he hands a bag of coins. He's like, okay, well, here's all the pennies, you count them.
It gets petty. Oh my gosh, it gets so petty. Divorcing is petty, and I've seen scenarios where they're like, we're going to agree to everything. Your assets, your liabilities, the kids, time sharing, alimony, we're going to agree. But then now you have another person comes into the play, a new girlfriend, a new boyfriend. Yeah. And now everything that was reasonable becomes unreasonable because people don't want to be reasonable because I don't like you anymore. Yep. I got a new person. It's challenging. And there are times when having an attorney does work. I was in a hearing yesterday. This one guy, he did not understand what the judge was saying. He fired his attorney, and he just blew up in the courtroom via Zoom. And she's like, you don't understand. And I'm saying to myself, he doesn't. And he really needs an attorney, even if it's just to guide him through the process because he was so upset.
Yeah, it's challenging when the emotions are high like that. It's such a challenging time for people, especially if they didn't have consultations to set those expectations of what here's the realm of possibilities. Here's what could happen, but here's most likely, in my experience, what might happen. So that's a challenging time. If you just joined us, we're talking with attorney KARMIKA Rubin here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. The law offices of KV Rubin, PA. Online at rubinslaw.com. That's RUBINS law.com. And she's got a Zoominar coming up, Divorcing While Owning Real Estate. You got her Zoominar coming up on March 24th, 6 p.m. And that leads us to my next question. I wanted to talk about, what happens to the home. We outline marital assets, but one of the biggest asset in many cases is the home during those divorce situations.
What's interesting about that is even some judges may not understand real estate law. And when you're in a family law court, there's discussions. But if the family was going through a financial hardship and they're already behind on the mortgage, and now you're trying to also divorce, those are two different areas of law, real estate law and family law when it comes to divorcing. So I've had to kind of, bring some education to how the foreclosure process goes. But if you're current on your mortgage or if you're not current, it's still the same basics of whose name is on the deed as far as ownership, whose name is on the note as far as the financial liability. So even if a court gives you the home and you're like, oh, I got the house, but then there's a separate contract that's dealing with a separate company that is saying somebody still needs to owe us whoever signed on the dotted line. So they can sue whoever signed on the dotted line, and then that person can come back to the family law court to say, well, they're supposed to hold me harmless and pay everything.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's the challenge. That's sometimes where we come in and we're dealing with these assets and we're putting them on the market. And then you got multiple parties on the sideline saying, oh, well, we think the value should be this. And, oh, well, so-and-so said the value should be that. And, guess where their value is it on the high side or the low side, right?
Exactly. And you're so needed because in some of these cases, when maybe they've had the home for 2 years, maybe 3 years, it's not a true family, 20-year, been in the family type home. And the court is saying, you need to now sell the house. And it does come to, okay, well, what is the value? And then from the proceeds of the home, who's going to get what? Are we paying our attorney fees out of the sale of the home? Are we paying any other judgments or any other items out of the net proceeds? So it really does get entangled.
Yeah, and I've had situations where I've had properties listed with one party, and then the judge comes in and says, well, so-and-so has the right, and they change realtors, so I get screwed out of the deal. I've literally had properties like under contract, going into contract. I can't remember the details because it was years ago, but I'm like, wait a minute, that's not fair. Where's my attorney?
Exactly. This awesome thing we call life. Life is real. Life does happen. And when you get into a marriage, you don't think about divorcing. You think about building and not destroying. But it's just unfortunate that when you do go through a separation, when you do go through a divorce, and there is property, whether it's commercial, residential, investment, homes, when it happens, you have to know what are your legal options. Am I losing? Am I gaining? Is it marital? Is it non-marital? How do we assess the value? How do we split it up? Those are all questions that I really want to dive into in the Zoominar. So
absolutely. All right. Well, that's good stuff. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got more with attorney KARMIKA Rubin here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. We'll take a quick break, come back with her. And on the second half of the show, we got attorney Patrick Smith on the show as well. We're going to talk more about Florida wills, trust, estate planning, probate attorney Patrick Smith coming up on the show here as well. Don't go anywhere. Don't touch that dial. And follow us online. We would love to connect with you at Brandon Rhymes 1 on Instagram and Twitter. Get her as well, Consumer Quarterback Show page out there on Facebook. And we'll be right back here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
Hey, this is Grant Cardone, and you've been listening to the phenomenal Brandon Rhymes, the Consumer Quarterback Show.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com.
Hey, Brandon Rhymes here for Cleaning Commandos here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Cleaning Commandos are hiring, and they're offering competitive wages, flexible hours, relaxed atmosphere, and a sign-on bonus. Reach out if you'd like a career with the Cleaning Commandos here in Tampa Bay. Info at cleaningcommandosllc.com or call 813-750-0550, 813-750-0550. Cleaning Commandos, Consumer Quarterback Show. Hey, Brandon Rhymes here. We are looking for real estate investors. We've got a new relationship bringing us a tremendous amount of off-market real estate investment opportunities. So text the word investor to our hotline, 813-750-0550. Off-market real estate investment opportunities. Text investor to 813-750-0550. Brandon Rhymes here, Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty, looking for real estate investors. Send us a text. Have you desired more income and more freedom in your life? Now is your time. Keller Williams Realty has just launched our own real estate school, and you can get licensed for free. I'm Brandon Rhymes, host of the Consumer Quarterback Show, owner of the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. And for the first 3 people who reach out, I will personally coach you. 813-917-1894. Call or text 813-917-1894. ConsumerQB.com. ConsumerQB.com.
You're listening to the Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. Online at consumerqb.com.
And we're back. Brandon Rhymes here. Consumer Quarterback Show, powered by the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment Division. Now we're certified through the Sports and Entertainment Division, which is kind of a luxury and a high-level, organization with part of the Keller Williams organization, rather. 200,000 agents worldwide, only 1,000 agents involved in the Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment Division. So it's really cool. Really excited about that. A lot of progress happening there. Now, we like to feature our real estate listings live on air as well. And we've got a hot property listing here on Loredon Drive in Seminole. This is a $1 million listing of ours, 14626 Loredon Drive, Seminole, Florida. Now, what we got is a unique opportunity here to own a property that's on the point. So you're literally on the point. You're about 12 feet above the sea level. You got 2 bedrooms, 3 bath, 1,330 square feet, and 180-degree views of the intercoastal waterway. So if you're watching our TV show version on Apple TV, Amazon, Roku, you can see that we're on the point. You've got 180-degree views of the intercoastal waterway, private boat dock, heated pool, tennis courts, and so much more to offer here with beautiful windows throughout. You can see beautiful, gorgeous views of the waterways. 14626 Loredon Drive, number 14 in Seminole. And you can see all of our listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com.
This is God's country.
All right, so we got a great conversation going on here with attorney KARMIKA Rubin, law offices of KV Rubin, PA, as well as coming up, we've got Patrick Smith in studio as well, and he is a estate planning attorney, probate, talk about wills, trust, estate planning, probate attorney here, and he actually had a question for KARMIKA, which is very, it's topical right now, so go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, Brandon, thank you. KARMIKA, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I was excited to see you here today because our practice area is estate planning and family law. Actually, if you look at it in a Venn diagram analysis, there's a little bit of an overlap when it comes to that of the prenuptial or postnuptial agreement. And a lot of estate planning attorneys feel like the prenuptial or postnuptial has been on this 30 or 40-year track where it's merging with estate planning, where it speaks to spousal elective share rights or homestead rights to the property as far as the state constitution goes. But in Brandon's field or application, I wanted you to try to speak to the value of a good prenuptial or postnuptial agreement when it comes to the division of real property should a divorce occur.
So my main thing when I speak to clients concerning their nuptials is understand first full disclosure. So you have to have full disclosure of both parties, the income, the assets, and especially when it comes to real estate. If it is your desire to walk away and leave the party as they came, because that's what a lot of prenuptials are, is saying that whatever you came to the table with, you can either leave with it or we can limit what each party will have upon a dissolution of marriage. If you were together, and this is kind of a tricky question, because if you were a couple for years prior to marriage, now you have to understand, are we talking about a home that we bought as individuals compared to a home we intend to purchase once we're actually married? So those are some of the things to definitely consider. And when it comes to, and I'm just going to slide a little bit to the estate planning portion of it, if you're trying to decide, well, if something was to happen to me physically, I'm no longer here on earth, who do I want to have my non-marital assets, then list it like what you're going to talk about, list it in a will, or be creative in a quit claim deed on how you want it to be disposed of or conveyed to whomever you love. So a prenup or a postnup, I would say understand the assets and what the ultimate desire is before you get married, and then how you want it to be viewed once you are married and seeking a divorce.
Any follow-up on
that?
that?
Was beautifully said. Beautifully said, KARMIKA. Nothing to add. No.
Yeah, and one thing, why don't we just define also, because this topic, this word comes up a lot. Some people call it a quick, like quick, not fast, but quick. It's not quick. It's quit, Quit, right? Quit claim deed.
Yeah.
What exactly is that?
A quit claim deed is a way to convey whatever interest you have in a property to another person or another entity. So if you have zero legal interest, well, that's what you're going to convey. If you have 50 or 100%, that is what you are going to convey. A lot of investors, they really like to use quit claim deed because it's more of a non-traditional, you're not giving a warranty as far as title is concerned to whomever you're giving it to or selling it to. So a quit claim deed is just a type of a deed to give ownership or legal interest, whatever it may be, from one person to another. Compare that to a warranty deed. That's saying I am the only owner. I do have 100% interest. If you do a title search, you will see my name.
Right.
And if not, you have a warranty that you can come back and you have a legal recourse. Quit claim deeds, it is what it is.
Yep, that's right. And there's no search done, and you could have issues down the road, and somebody could lay a claim to it and come back and cause challenges for you. So if you just joined us, we're talking with attorney KARMIKA Rubin here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, the law offices of KV Rubin, PA, rubinslaw.com. And next question, when we talked about the home and dispersing the assets, and we talked about what happens to the home, but what if the home is in foreclosure?
If the home is in foreclosure, let me also just define the foreclosure, because the lenders will tell you if you're 3 months at a minimum or more behind in your monthly mortgage payments, they're going to tell you, well, we've already sent this file to foreclosure. Well, for legal terms, it's not in foreclosure until a case number has been established. So they're calling it foreclosure, which in my terms legal is pre-foreclosure lawsuit. But once you're in a lawsuit for foreclosure, I don't care if you're together, separated, going through divorce, both parties will be listed as a defendant in that foreclosure lawsuit, and they both need to be represented. And you can have a foreclosure lawsuit open and active while you have a divorce lawsuit open and active. And if your attorney does not understand how both ought to work together, then you may need to have the two attorneys talk together, or get an attorney that understands both foreclosure defense and also divorcing in Florida.
Yeah, and further, I've had situations where I've had represented clients, and I've gone into the courtroom with the judge or before the judge, and I've said, okay, Mr. Judge, I've got a listing agreement here, and I've got a purchase and sale agreement here. We have a fair market value. Can we please push this foreclosure date out and allow time for this traditional sale to happen? It's a non-arm's length, or it's an arm's length transaction. By the way, it's a non-arm's length would be not good, but this is an arm's length transaction. So I've had cases where I've kind of went in there and played attorney almost in a sense and said, hey, here's what I got. Can you please give me the time? And they did. They gave us some time.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like when you've already gone through, the parties have already gone through foreclosure, and they're realizing, we're about to lose, because a foreclosure sale, if it moves forward, you don't really have, the defendant is really not a winner unless there's equity in the property. And that just depends on the highest bidder for the actual foreclosure sale. So you did a great job for a great group of people or a person to give them more time to have more control over the outcome of their home. You still own your home until you don't, with a certificate of title or with some type of a conveyance of a deed.
All
so
right.
Good job.
Hey, good stuff. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We got about 30 seconds left. Can you wrap it all up for us and remind us about your upcoming event?
Zoominar, March 24, 2022 at 6 p.m. Go to our website, register with a licensed attorney. Get your questions answered for free. Attorney KARMIKA Rubin, www.rubinslaw.com.
Absolutely. RUBINSlaw.com. Thank you so much, KARMIKA. Great information.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we've got attorney Patrick Smith in studio here, Florida Estate Planning. He's also a radio show host on his own show, Saturday, 8 a.m. right here on 860 The Answer, and does a lot of good work here in Tampa Bay. Wills, trust, estate planning, probate, and more to discuss here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. And we'd love for you to hang out with us here when we come back. You can call in as well, 813-917-1894, and we'll put you in touch with any of our expert contributors that you'd like to speak with. We'll be right back after this short break.
This is Chris Voss, former FBI lead hostage negotiator and owner of the Black Swan Group, and you're listening to Consumer Quarterback Show hosted by my friend Brandon Rhymes.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com.
Johnny, we can keep going? Karmika, I see that you're still on the line. If you're going to hold, that's fine. I don't think we have any more callers, so it's completely up to you.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was asking if you still needed me, so I'm going to go ahead and log off. Thank you.
You're so welcome on behalf of everybody here. Until next time.
Yes, thank you. Talk to you soon.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. In that case, everyone, please stand by.
Five, four, three, two, one.
You're listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, online at consumerqb.com. Brandon is Tampa Bay's #1 consumer advocate for real estate and financial advice. Call Brandon today at 813-917-1894.
All right, welcome back. Brandon Rhymes here, Consumer Quarterback Show, powered by the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. And I want to give a shout out to Chad Irrigation, Victor and his team over at Chad Irrigation for all of your sprinkler and irrigation needs. Think about Victor and his team. They do a great job on our real estate properties, and they will take good care of you. Just mentioned that you heard about them right here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. All right, we got a hot listing here in Tampa Bay. This is 14121 7th Street in Dade City. We got a restaurant for sale. This is a beautiful opportunity. Any entrepreneurs, developers out there, 14121 7th Street in Dade City. This is downtown. You got plenty of parking, street parking as well, and you've got a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment upstairs. This is an established restaurant since 1990. Downtown Dade City, 2 dining rooms. You got a buffet style upstairs, or banquet style rather, upstairs. Furniture's included, the real estate's included, the equipment's included. You got to check this one out. It's in the $600,000 price range. 14121 7th Street in Dade City, a restaurant that we have for sale right here in beautiful Tampa Bay. All right, we got a property at 1324 Hicks Road, vacant land as well. I've got about a dozen or so properties that are vacant land. We sell residential, commercial, and vacant land. This one's 1324 Hicks Road, over 3 acres, plenty of road entrance as well, septic, electric, and well available as well, and a beautiful property in Hudson. So we got about a dozen other properties available, ranging from 30 acres on New York Avenue. Lots of land available. So reach out if you're looking to purchase land right here in Tampa Bay. And you can see all of our real estate listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com. All right, we got attorney Patrick Smith in the house, and of course, welcome back in. And we talk about wills, trust, estate planning, probate. These are very important topics because they're topics that people don't understand. A lot of times, they put it off until the last minute. They're not really so proactive about talking to their friends and family member about death, right?
Yeah, that's right, Brandon. First of all, thanks for having me back. It's always great to be with you. You see it so often, like you mentioned earlier, it's too often family members being nosy and getting involved in other family members' estate planning and completely neglecting to do their own. And we see that from time to time at the law office, where a nosy family member comes in with another loved one trying to tell that loved one how to do their estate planning. And I always ask them the question. I say, this is called undue influence. We're not going to move forward with anything, but do you mind my asking if you have your own estate planning in place? And almost always it's no, I haven't done my own. Then why are you so worried about theirs? So
that's funny.
It's ironic, but a lot of times it's just misunderstanding. It's people don't understand, and especially younger people. They think, well, I'm too young for a will.
Right.
But everyone needs a will. Because even if you have all your accounts beneficiaried or POD, TOD, anything like that jointly held with another person, your will is still going to set forth who the personal representative of your estate is. Right. Who's going to be in charge? who's going to marshal those assets, pay the creditors, deal with the final tax return, and be in charge of your ultimate estate distribution. If you have minor children, the will is what's going to lay out who the guardians are, who's going to raise your children. You're not going to leave that up to the state. So it's very important for young couples. I think it's actually more important for young couples, or just as important for those who are in their senior years. But everyone needs a good estate plan, and everyone needs a good will.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think about also these Terry Schiavo estate. Remember that one from years ago?
Oh, yeah.
You know, the poor
that was local. That was right here. Yeah.
Yeah, she was laid up for X amount of time, and she was stuck in a hospital. And then you had the siblings, or who you know more about the case. Why don't you refresh us on that?
Yeah.
But it leads to an advanced medical directive, I believe.
Yeah.
Right?
So the situation there was one where the husband was speaking on his wife's behalf, and unfortunately, it was a situation where the facts made it a terrible case, because there was nothing in writing about what Terry wanted, and her parents were advocating one position, her husband was advocating another, and there was no clear direction, and it was just a terrible set of facts. And It was a terrible situation. And the point being, the takeaway, the silver lining that we can all take from that is to say we can avoid it. By putting it in writing. Now, that's actually one of our supporting documents that goes with a will or a trust, whatever model you select, and it's called a living will with an advanced directive, and it clearly indicates to your family, if I'm in that condition, here's what I do or don't want done, and that way the family's not burdened with making the choice at all. They're simply left honoring your choice.
Yeah, and in that situation, when you are in, for example, laid up in the hospital bed, you've got limited amount of, brain activity or whatever that situation is. You had a bad car accident or whatever. What do you see most people doing? Do most people say, "Yeah, give me X amount of time, then pull the plug"? Or
very few. Most people say, "If I'm in that permanent brain dead state, let me go." Yeah. Now I've had a few. Yep. I've had a few with large monthly income streams. For whatever reason, the way their career shook out, they have huge income streams coming in every month. So basically they told the family, plug me in, turn me on, until I start costing you more than is coming in every month.
Oh, okay.
But as long as I'm profit positive, keep me plugged in. I don't care. So, but it's a very rare circumstance. Most people say, especially my widow and widower clients, when they've got that other half waiting on the other side, they're ready to go. Right,
exactly. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If you just joined us, we're talking with attorney Patrick Smith here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes, and this is a great example of our consultative approach to the radio and TV show, and we try to provide value here and be your consumer advocate. We've got a lot of different expert contributors that come on the program, ranging from several different types of attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors, solar companies, tech experts, and on and on. So we'd like for you to reach out to the show. We'll put you in touch with any of our expert contributors, whatever you might be facing, whatever you need. We want to be that consumer advocate. 813-917-1894. That's an off-air number. You can call or text that line, 813-917-1894. So, Patrick, what do you think also are some of the other misnomers in your line of work and your expertise?
So I think people, and you were talking about it earlier when you had KARMIKA on for her segment, and which, by the way, she did an excellent job, I thought, discussing real estate as it relates to divorce law and equitable distribution. It was an absolutely excellent presentation on that. But I think a lot of people have a severe misunderstanding about how deeds work. And you pointed out the fact that people often misidentify a quit claim deed as a quick claim deed. Yeah. But people often misunderstand what the deed does. Okay. And oftentimes when people create a revocable living trust and they quit claim the property to the trust, some people misunderstand that to mean they've given up ownership of the property to their children now. That is simply a funding of the home into the trust to bypass the probate process, which is the goal of the trust. It's not you relinquishing any rights to your house. You still have full control. You could take it out of the trust. You could sell it to a third party, refinance it. So I think that's the biggest thing I see is people who misunderstand quit claim deeds, and sort of in the same vein along real estate lines, it's people who massively misunderstand homestead law. Right. And when people think homestead law, they make the precarious decision that because I understand I get an ad valorem property tax every year, so long as I filed by March 1st, now I understand all of Florida homestead law in total. And that ought to scare you, especially as a real estate professional. You understand most of homestead law, about 90% of Florida's homestead law, doesn't live in any Florida statute. It lives in our state constitution. And that's why when you get out-of-state attorneys coming down to Florida and searching our statutes, they miss the target all the time. Wow. Because they don't know to look in the Constitution. Wow. And that's where our state constitutional law is And on my show, we did a two-part series on Florida homestead law, just delving into the constitutional provisions. That's why I kind of talked to KARMIKA a little bit about that, because it was specifically related to postnuptials and prenuptial agreements with regard to the spousal rights to homestead property. So I think real estate in general, and especially homestead concepts, are often terribly misunderstood.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you think about the homestead in Florida and why you see a lot of the millionaires and billionaires have such huge homesteads,
Right.
you know, Trump with Mar-a-Lago and just different places, right? So
Right.
you have, it's a huge protection that we have in the state of Florida to be able to put a lot of our assets into one place.
Right, and there's no economic cap. So if you look at the state constitution, your homestead property is protected 100% so long as it's within 1/2 acre within the city limits or 160 acres outside of the city limits. Now that may make no sense to us now, but you got to take yourself back to like 1860s Florida.
Yeah.
And start thinking about what was going on in Florida at the time. It was even more agrarian than it is now. That's where the 160 number comes from. If you want to guess the average size of a farm in
Right.
1800s Florida, 160 would be the right number.
Yeah.
And that's the point. As a public policy, we thought Floridians ought to have always a place to live.
Yeah.
And so that's what it does. But the other side of that coin, sort of the other side of that public policy, if we're going to allow you to protect this from your creditors, then we, as a state in our Constitution, are going to require you to protect the homestead for certain people who should be important to you during your life, namely spouses or minor children.
Interesting.
And tons of deeds in the public record violate this. You'll see people who are married, who own a homestead property in only their name, and they attempt to transfer it and sign the deed just themselves. But Article 10, Section 4, subsection C says you can alienate property with spousal joinder. It's the converse of that really shows us the rule. In other words, you may not alienate property without spousal joinder. And that's why you'll pull deeds for homestead properties all the time, where
And
you don't,
one party
you
signs.
only have one spouse's, and because the county accepts it and doc stamps it, everyone thinks that means it's legitimate. That just means the county accepted it for recording. That does not verify or validate the document.
Yeah, because that could be challenged in a legal proceeding.
All the time.
And that's going back to if you had a quitclaim deed
Exactly.
and not a proper
Warranty
closing
deed.
at a warranty deed at a closing at a title company with an attorney, et cetera, you could be opening yourself up to future litigation or worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, let's take a quick break there. When we come back, we're going to jump into our last segment here, our final segment with attorney Patrick Smith on the Consumer Quarterback Show. We're going to talk about wills, trust, estate planning, probate, and more here on the show. And more with Patrick Smith right after this break. We'll be right back.
This is Warwick Dunn, and you're listening to the Real Estate Quarterback Show hosted by my man, Brandon Rhymes.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com.
Hey, Brandon Rhymes here. We are looking for real estate investors. We've got a new relationship bringing us a tremendous amount of off-market real estate investment opportunities. So text the word investor to our hotline, 813-750-0550. Off-market real estate investment opportunities. Text investor to 813-750-0550. Brandon Rhymes here, Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty, looking for real estate investors. Send us a text.
You're listening to the Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. Online at consumerqb.com.
And we're back. Brandon Rhymes here. Consumer Quarterback Show, Platinum MVP team, Keller Williams Realty, always helping you win, buying, selling, or investing as well. We just launched Keller Williams launched our own real estate school, by the way. So if anybody out there is thinking about getting licensed, we have our own Keller Williams Real Estate School, and it's free, which is pretty cool. It's an online course powered by Kaplan, but it's an opportunity to get licensed, maybe have a side hustle, something like that. Maybe you're a contractor, maybe, you can just refer business into the company. So we would love to help you with that. You can visit our website at consumerqb.com or platinummvpteam.com. All right, we got attorney Patrick Smith in the house, and he's got his own show Saturday morning, 860 The Answer, 14 different markets, a huge presence, and having a lot of fun with your show, I presume.
I love it. I did radio for about 10 years, then I took a break because I had a little boy at home that I wanted to see on the weekends, so I actually, for about 10 years, took Fridays off and Saturdays just to get the extra day in with my son. One of my mentors actually told me, he said, if a ship is 1 degree off course, it doesn't make a difference 2 days into the journey. But 2 weeks into that journey, those 2 degrees will be massive. And so I thought about that in terms of that extra day with my son.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
I thought that one extra day may mean very little this week, but 10 years later, that's going to mean a lot to him.
Yeah.
So he's grown now for the most part. He's 16, 6 foot tall, and he's got all the answers to all life's problems. And so I'm back to doing radio on Saturday mornings. My wife thought it was a great idea that I do it, and I'm loving it. Having more fun than I ever thought I would.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. It's a lot of fun, and you do a live show, so that's pretty cool too.
Yeah,
so
it's a blast.
Yeah, awesome, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love that lesson, that life lesson. Yeah, you're off 1 degree, and by the time you end up, if it's a plane example, by the time you end up in Europe, you're in South Europe versus North Europe.
Absolutely.
It's a long ways off. Might end up in Africa, who knows? But we're talking with attorney Patrick Smith here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. So yeah, estate planning, probate, a lot of questions come up in these areas, especially with my real estate business, my real estate practice. Probate. Why don't we just start? What is probate?
So probate's the court-supervised transfer of assets from a decedent to the appropriate living beneficiary.
Yep.
And I actually had a case just recently, and it would have been great to run this by KARMIKA, because what happened was there was a divorce.
Yep.
And the divorce decree ordered the property to be split such a way, and it was different than it was appearing on the title. So the judge's decree actually changed the ownership. Well, one of those two parties passed. So we had a probate pursuant to a judicial decree. And it was a very interesting case. It was a case of first impression for me where you actually had to do a closing based on a judge's order, not on the title as it appeared in the public record. So it was very interesting. But the probate process is how the court oversees that process. The literal Latin translation means prove the intent of the deceased. Not that family would ever disagree over what a dead loved one wanted, right? Never happened, Brandon.
No, right?
So
No.
happens all the time. We have a healthy litigation department. But at the end of the day, the probate process in a more practical term takes about 6 to 14 months. It varies case to case, county to county, and on average anywhere in the 3 to 10% fee range. So it's pretty expensive, it's pretty time consuming, and for most estates it's easily avoided by creating a revocable living trust.
Yeah, it's a challenging for a lot of people in those situations. And when you look at the divorce and the probate side, the real estate's involved in a lot of cases. There's people that say we want to keep the house, and so said we should keep the house. So it does get into a lot of the he said, she said. That's why ultimately any type of contract law, listing agreements, contracts, it all comes back to what's on paper and what you can prove.
Yeah, we call that the four corners doctrine. I mean, and the more you memorialize and codify in writing, the better protected everyone is. That's why I was asking KARMIKA about those pre and post nuptial agreements,
right?
Especially in what we call non-traditional marriage, and by non-traditional marriage we mean a second marriage or a third marriage, which there's an outbreak of that up in the villages where I also have an office. So that being the case, it's a matter of making sure that you put in writing whose kids will be in charge,
right?
Who will get whose assets. But the more you put in writing, the better protected everyone is, because they know, oh, that is what mom or dad wanted. You're not taking someone else's word for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, talk to me about trust. I've heard people say putting things into like personal property trust, and then just different things. People can get pretty creative with trust.
Sure. Yeah, I've got. So, for instance, if you have like an auto collection, like you have a rare Corvettes collection, you can actually create a personal property trust just to hold those personal property accounts. And there are now National Title II firearm trust for our gun collectors.
Yes, that's right.
In addition to that, there is the more common standard revocable living trust, which has by far become, I would say, the new wave of estate planning. It's the fancy will that skips probate, is my layman's definition for it. And at the end of the day, what it essentially does is make sure that everything skips that 6 to 14 months in probate, the 3 to 10% in fees. But it also makes sure that there's someone there called a successor trustee to captain your family's financial ship should you not die right away.
Right.
But should you be prolonged incapacitated. See, the statistics tell us that most people will be incapacitated for some period prior to their death. And the statistics go on to show us that the final 30 to 90 days of someone's life are the most expensive days that they will ever live.
Wow.
So having someone that you've pre-selected and entrusted with keeping your family safe can go a long way to reduce or eliminate a lot of those major expenses.
Wow. Yeah, that's very well said, man. And you look at, even if you have, for example, an expensive car, like a personal car,
Sure.
or like you mentioned, the gun collection, these are things that you might want to look at having trust set up, because then you're going to have the asset protection piece as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People use trust for lots of different methodologies. Asset protection is one of them. And a lot of times it's great to set them up before the liability occurs.
Exactly.
Under Florida statute, you don't typically want to start shifting things around after the liability's arisen, because it can be set aside for an attempt to defraud a creditor.
Yep.
So again, planning. I was explaining to a client this morning, I said, this is why we call it planning. We do it before we need it.
That's
so
right.
It's not a state reacting.
Yes.
It's a state planning. So
Yeah. Yeah, because if you start reacting, like you said, moving stuff around, then they can easily say, "Hey, that's it's kind of like on the flip side of a business, like piercing that corporate veil."
Oh, absolutely. We see that all the time. So people too often think that, filing with Sunbiz is the finish line for a business. You're done. That's the starting line.
Yep.
And it's all about how you maintain that corporation, maintaining those corporate records, having the operating agreement, the bylaws, the stock shares, having all that in place and properly maintaining that. That determines the strength of your corporate veil, as you pointed out, Brandon, and whether or not it will be pierced.
Right. Yeah. And if it's pierced, then now you're opening up everything.
It's like you never had an LLC or a corporation or any kind of entity.
Right. Yeah. And the liability's there, and people could literally lose lots of things, minus your homestead, as we just mentioned.
Yeah, it can be catastrophic. So I think that's why it's critical when you set up a corporation, you make sure to go to a good qualified attorney who's skilled in that. And I think you oftentimes want to work with someone who's seasoned in litigation with regard to your type of business, because who better to set up the entity that's going to protect you than the person who's going to be protecting you when you get sued. And if you own a business for any length of time, eventually you're going to get some sort of lawsuit. So I think it's best to have it set up by someone who's going to be defending you, so they know what they put in there to protect you.
That's right. Yeah, the person that's tasked with going to the courthouse, going in front of the judge,
Right.
going and litigating.
Because what I hear litigators say all the time is they say, I wish this had been in there.
Right.
And if this was in there, then we could do this. So who better to go to than that person, so they can put everything in there that they want to use to protect you.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to the show hotline if you'd like to talk to Attorney Patrick Smith, 813-917-1894. You can call or text as well, 813-917-1894. We'll put you right in touch with him in his office and sit down. Now, do you have some type of a consultation that you offer out there?
Yeah, we actually offer a complimentary consultation. So if you've never done estate planning before, or if you have old estate planning documents, or you have estate planning documents from a different state, and you just want to have someone sit down with you and review them, we'll do that free of charge, give you our thoughts on them, and give you an estimate for any updates that we recommend.
Yeah, that's a good point. So many people moving down from, Illinois, New York, California. You're seeing all the hot states that people are moving from, the top 3, top 5, right? And Florida is one of the biggest states moving to. I think Florida and Texas are right up there with Tennessee and North Carolina. But yeah, you're seeing, and some of those reciprocate, some don't, right?
Well, the biggest myth we battle against, and the most common question we get, whether it's in speaking engagements on the radio show or at the law office daily, is my out-of-state will or trust valid in Florida? And most people think no, because they've got neighbors who have Google law degrees that are telling them that.
Exactly.
And at the end, by the way, if that is the case, stop taking legal advice from non-attorneys. But if you look at your document, if it's valid in the state of origin, it's valid here. But don't rest your head too comfortably there, because there is a chasm of difference between validity and optimal efficiency. And I'll demonstrate it for you. For those of you listening who have your wills handy, grab them. If they're from another state, read the first line. It says, I, a resident of, and it probably has your residency wrong. If it's in a state with an aggressive Department of Revenue, that could be an issue. You may have to argue your way out of taxes, because what's one thing all residents of a state do? They pay taxes there.
Yep.
And then it comes to the execution. Florida has very specific rules about execution requirements for them to be considered self-proving. And basically it's 2 witnesses, a notary, and certain affidavit language. If it's falling short on that, 1 witness or no notary or whatever, you may have to locate one or both of those witnesses and prove the validity of the document.
Right.
And that can add some additional time to that probate.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And even the fact that we were just about homesteads. Some states don't have homestead.
No, that's right. Each state's different. Some states are community property states.
Yep.
So you got to account for that when you adjust your documents.
Yeah, absolutely. Big difference. We got about a minute left. Back to you. Final thoughts and where folks can find you online or social. Yep.
So attorneypatricksmith.com, or you can find me on Instagram, Facebook at Attorney Patrick Smith. And again, Brandon, thank you so much for having me on the show. If you guys want to tune into my show, it's the Attorney Patrick Smith Show, Saturday mornings, 8 a.m.
Saturday mornings, 8 a.m. Awesome.
Yes, sir.
And it's an opportunity to call in live and speak on the radio.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we enjoy it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming in, Patrick, and a lot of great advice out there, or information rather, for our listeners. Appreciate that.
Brandon, appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we want to thank all of our producers behind the scenes putting the show together, and all of our listeners and our viewers, of course. And again, the show is a local consumer advocate based program. So it's all about you engaging with us and supporting the show. And we greatly appreciate all those that do by calling in to the hotline or hitting us up on the website. We get social media engagement as well at Brandon Rhymes 1 on Instagram and Twitter and Getter out there. We have our Consumer Quarterback Show page as well. You can hit us up online and connect with us there. And, of course, the hotline you can call anytime, 813-917-1894. Off-air number, 813-917-1894. And as we always say, we want you to please go out there and consider committing a random act of kindness. Do something kind for one another. Be a force for good in the community. And it's all about engagement out there. So appreciate you sharing this podcast. If you're listening to the podcast, sharing the show out there, information with any of your friends and family. And Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
You've been listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Whether it's real estate, consumer, or financial advice, let Brandon call your next play. Call Brandon Rhymes at 813-917-1894. That's 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com. And join us next time for the Consumer Quarterback Show.